Darktide has a plethora of weapons for each class at your disposal. Well, unless you're an Ogrin, but that's an argument for another video. In the most recent patch, the Zealot Preacher was given a new weapon, the Idignatus Mk IVe Crusher, a two-handed power maul that slaps things around like they owe it money. One question I keep getting is which is better, the Crusher or the Thunderhammer? In this video, I want to address this question by showing off both weapons, their stats, their combos, how they play to ultimately help you to determine which is the best one for you. Now, before we even start, let me just tell you, the Crusher is a crowd control weapon meant for keeping the entire field locked down with very little burst damage, while the Thunderhammer has a not so great cleave and a huge amount of burst damage, meaning that if you want a weapon to do raw damage, you want the Thunderhammer. If you want a weapon to control everything so your team can clean up, you want the Crusher. And that's honestly the gist of it. And you can feel free to shut the video down now if that's all you wanted to know, but if you'd like to get into a bit more detail, sit tight. You can jump ahead to any point of the video that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline in the description. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitch, linked in the description, as I stream Darktide Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday every week, and we do community matches, giveaways, and I ramble about a bunch of dumb stuff. But lastly, if you end up enjoying the video or if you're heading out, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. Each one of those helps out any content creator you watch in a huge way, while also funding my mini Aussies unending treat addiction. Let's get started here on the Crusher versus the Thunderhammer, which is better for Warhammer 40k Darktide. So starting us off, let's take a look at the Crusher now. Now this is my Crusher that I got lucky and purchased off of the limited whatever store, and it turned out pretty spicy. Very big fan of what it's got going for it. So let's take a look real quick at its stats. Not the actual attributes of what it rolled, but what we've got. So damage, no brainer here. But we get crowd control, increases a weapon's stagger, impact, and cleave. The big thing here is that you get cleave distribution, which is very nice, right? You're going to have more damage kind of pouring out from this. But of course, the big thing with this weapon is going to be stagger. That is a very huge portion of this weapon because it's what you're going to be dealing out tons of with or without activating it. And activating it, of course, turns on the power portion of it. So when we take a look at this, we're also looking at power output. These two things kind of play hand in hand. Damage inflicted by the powered up activated attacks on power maul and similar power weapons, of course. So this gives us area suppression, the epicenter radius, and the blast radius. Those three things are going to be the biggest portion of this. Now, light and heavy attack power, that's great. You know, it is nice and increase to the damage of this, but I don't know if it's bugged or whatever it is, but it doesn't really seem to have a true heavy attack power increase. If you look at the heavy attack over here of 247, hovering over this says 408. And I'll show you when we attack a target dummy that it doesn't really do a whole ton more damage when we've activated it and used the Zealot's activatable. Wicked be thy name, or whatever the hell the name of it is. So these two things are pretty crucial. And when you're taking a look at the roll for this, I got pretty lucky. These are all really good rolls on my damage, my penetration, my crowd control, my power output. My defense is super low though. And honestly, the defense for me, it's not really a big deal. Because when you take a look at these weapons, every time you look at something, oh man, it's got a 40% defense. And remember that in this current iteration of the game, because crafting is not 100% rolled out, and I don't know what's going to change things, but the max percentage you can roll is 80%. So defenses here is going to give us sprint cost, push cost, damage distance, and dodge speed. The intervals on those are not too crazy. Look at the sprint cost on this. 1.63 versus 1.88. Those are your intervals of what your sprint is going to cost you. Your push cost too is 3 to 1, so that actually can be pretty nice if you have a higher defense roll. But I'm going to show you one with a higher defense roll to give you an idea of the juxtaposition between these two. Dodge speed and dodge distance, those two things of course are going to be highly variable as well. But to be totally honest, the way that you use this weapon and the way you'll be locking things down, defense cannot be rolled high and you can still have a very good weapon out of this. Like I said, pretty much everything here, this is 1% away from max, 3% away from max, and 8% away from max, and it's gone very well in its roll and its overall effectiveness. The other big thing here is penetration. So you're going to get 90% damage for light attacks versus flak armor with my 90, or let's just say 80%, right? It's 1% away. 80% roll here. And this does poorer against carapace armor, but nonetheless, you still get those that transfer through with penetration. It's a nice little thing here. Now, another big portion of this is the Crusher's blessings. Almost all of the Crusher's blessings that I've been able to take a look at, and there's a really cool website I'll link in the description below that allows you to take a look at every single blessing available to every single weapon in the game. It's an awesome website. But pretty much all of them have to do with impact. Now, I don't really know what impact does. There are things that increase impact, like crowd control here increases stagger and impact, implying that impact is different than stagger. It seems to be, in somewhat of a community consensus, is that impact is both stagger and damage, but a higher, like a 70-30 split of stagger versus damage. So it's hard to really say how impact really does in the grand scheme of things, because I'm using Hammer Blow, which increases basically by 100% the impact after it stacks all 5 times. Thunder Strike, which grants a total of 15% impact if already staggered stack against an enemy. You work this in conjunction with this feat right here, Punishment. I'm getting an additional amount of stagger here. So you can see we have got a ton of impact loaded into both this build and this individual Crusher. Now, I talked about having a different Crusher with a different defense roll, right? So we're looking at 39% versus the 63% of this Crusher. Looking at the actual stats here, the sprint cost is not that much different. The speed, the distance, it's not that huge of a change. So having a super high defense roll, yeah, if you want to min-max it, sure. But having a lower defense roll is really not going to hurt you. So don't worry about it if that's what happens. So now that we've kind of talked about that, let's go into the actual combo attack chains that we get. Because when we take a look at this, let's go ahead and press this button, we get, for the light attack, Relentless, followed by a Strike Down, and then 2 more Relentless attacks. Now, Strike Downs, of course, are way more single target damage, right? Targeting one enemy. And you can see that kind of nice amount of damage that we're doing. If we look at a critical weak spot on a Carapace armor, we're really not doing a whole ton. But if we look at a critical weak spot on Flak armor, we're still doing some good damage here. Infested would be any of your Poxwalkers that you're dealing with. Maniacs are your mutants. So keep those things in mind. Unyielding is a bulwark. So this is the kind of damage profiles that you'll be looking at and what you'll be dealing with your Strike Down. Now, the majority of your attacks, though, will be these cleaves, these relentless swipes horizontally left and right. You're still doing a nice amount of damage, but majority of this is going to be body. Less of it is going to be on the weak spot portion. Just because of the nature of this weapon, how you swing it, how you do damage, you're going to be just horizontally beating things across the entire map. So we've kind of showed this off. We also get the heavy attack too. It is worth noting that this does a substantial amount of damage to the critical weak spot of a flak armored unit. That'd be the chest of a Mauler, or the head of a Crusher is only 71. So you can see you're not going to be doing a lot of damage to things that have Carapace armor. Keep that in mind. And of course, your special action is a charge attack. So let's jump over now to the actual Psychanium to see how some of this damage profile works out. Going to the Psychanium, let's talk about the activatable portion of the Mauler, or the Crusher, because it's super important. So take a look at this little horde of monsters here. Activate, swing. It causes this huge thunderclap that pushes things back, kind of keeps them away from you. Now, this is really nice because it allows you to control entire hordes. It also triggers my ability for Zealot to grant me that stagger for hitting 3 things. That's the big thing here, right? And another reason why you want to really focus on getting power output maxed out is getting that blast radius increase. So this is only at 52%. This is about a 25% less. So I'm still going to be able to hit things, but my epicenter and my radius is now much lower. And because of that, it's not going to allow me to crowd control things as well as I probably would want to. And switching back over here. Now, the big thing too with the impact blessings I've got is it allows me to hit some stuff that isn't single target and kind of build up that impact stagger, right? Which is all nice. It's easy just to knock things off their feet with this weapon because there's so much stagger being dealt out to them. Now, what about single target damage, right? Because that's what you're going to want to do. You're a Zealot. You can really burst things down. Let's take the Scab Mauler, for example. His chest is flak armor. His headpiece is carapace. So that's going to kind of differentiate things how we hit him. In fact, actually, we're going to use the Crusher for an example. So if I go ahead and I attack the Crusher, 642 damage for activating and using my activatable. 447 damage. It's really not that huge of a difference to do the activating the maul, hitting over the head, versus that. I mean, yeah, it's 200 points of damage, and that's huge, right? You'd want that. But if we're looking at the differentiation, we'll take a look at this when we took a look at the Thunderhammer. The Thunderhammer will just beat things to a pulp with one shot. You can really two-shot a Crusher in a really reliable way. And we have this set onto, well, it's not, I thought I could press tab to show you, but this is on tier 5 difficulty, so the hardest difficulty. On the lower difficulties, they'll have less health, be able to do more damage to them as a counterpoint to that. So here's what this is like if I do flak armor. 453, a lot better, right? Let's see if I can get this to go. And 668. So it's about the same threshold when we're looking at flak armor, and we took a look at the flak armor. We do more damage to flak armor with this weapon. It is worth noting that, of course, I have on this increase to flak armor enemies by 25%. So that is kind of throwing this off a little bit, but it's still, my point remains, we innately do more flak armor damage with this weapon. And it still doesn't really kind of match up very well with what the game shows us. And on top of it too, when we charge into things with our activatable as a zealot, it should give us a critical hit on the weak spot. So I think the game might have this bugged a little bit, which will then kind of curtail back some of that damage. But that's not a critical hit. That was just a normal hit. That was just white text. So again, you're going to be using this weapon to really deal with hordes. That's how you use this. You just kind of constantly go like this, and nothing's going to be able to stand up. And you don't need to be using this to take things off balance, which is really nice, right? Like, I can keep this guy's shield not up, and the entire time my people can just go ahead and finish it. And what I want you to take note of is how often I can just simply spam this. The Thunderhammer can't do this. If I activate the Thunderhammer and swing with it, which you'll see in a little bit, there seems to be some sort of weird cooldown where you kind of lumber for a little bit before taking the hammer back up and using it again. Those things are what allow this thing to be a very good crowd control, in conjunction with having crowd control, this cool blast radius, all these things that allow the Crusher to do a lot of crowd control damage. So let's jump over now to the Thunderhammer. Moving into the Thunderhammer, we have a weapon that has very interesting setups, right? It says it's a crowd control weapon. It's effective against enemy hordes. It's obliterating, large, heavy, and powerful. This weapon unleashes devastation upon each blow with a sound like a thunderclap. Now, I wonder if these got mixed up, because the crowd control and obliterating kind of tags or modifiers, whatever you want to call them, for the Thunderhammer kind of match more with the Crusher. And the Crusher's power weapon, this weapon's special attack grants its, it's a power weapon, unstoppable, a heavy charge attack mode, slow to set up, but resulting in a devastating hit. I think they're supposed to be swapped, because the Crusher, you can just keep charging it and going, charging it and going, charging and going, versus the Thunderhammer, you can't. And again, we're going to show that off in just a little bit here. But looking at our actual damage stats, we have damage again, crowd control again, defenses again, as well as penetration. All four of the same things we had on the Crusher. But now we also get first target that swaps out with that power output, right? And this allows us to get more damage done to the first enemy hit when hitting multiple enemies in one swing. So if I hold down my attack and do heavy swings, because our heavy swings are both wide sweeping horizontal slashes, well, it's hard to say slash when you have a hammer, horizontal swipes, then you get more damage from that first target hit. So that's how that first target modifier works. But you also get crowd control, increasing that stagger, impact, and cleave. So cleave, stagger, and cleave damage distribution are a part of this. Having that at 80% is going to be nice. Defenses, not going to be as crucial for you, in my opinion, because the thing that defenses doesn't do, it does help with push cost, which is actually very, very, very helpful. But it doesn't help out with dodge limit or stamina. Those two big things are going to be the really big things that are going to help you in a defensive situation, especially stamina, which is going to help you when you are holding down right click and taking a bunch of hits. The stamina on the Thunderhammer is a +3 versus our Crusher is +3 as well. Dodge limit 2 versus the dodge limit of this guy being 2. Defenses would help out with that, not at all. So dodge distance and speed, nice, but I would rather have more dodge limit and stamina on both weapons, not just the Thunderhammer. But then we get penetration as well. Now, as of the patch that came out, this was supposed to be buffed. It has not been buffed. They said, hey, you know, it actually didn't make it this patch. These numbers will be different once the next patch hits, and we can see the Carapace armor will not just have 1%, I think it's like 50%, and its heavy attack will be much higher as well. I think that's 100%, I can't remember, but still. These numbers are not directly reflected on the ones that will be part of the patch, the next patch when that lands. We'll be able to do, this will be able to do more damage, which is going to be very, very nice. As far as blessings go, you do have a wide range of blessings available to you on the Thunderhammer, which is nice because the Crusher doesn't seem to, it only has about 4. The Thunderhammer gets Hammer Blow and Momentum, which is very nice. You know, hitting at least 3 enemies with an attack restores toughness. Toughness is a huge thing for you. But you get Head Taker to increase your power. You get Slaughterer, which increases your power on kill. Thunderous, which gives brittleness, which is effectively rending, which is effectively lowering their armor. Trauma, Thunderstrike, Thrust, Skull Crusher, all these nice amount of blessings, which I think is a huge boon to the Thunderhammer. But the Thunderhammer's use case is going to be different than your Crusher. Taking a look at tab here, we look at the light attacks. Even just your light attacks do so much more damage here, right? 253 onto, I'm sorry, to 63 to your Carapace, 177 to Flak Armored. And that's with a critical weak spot hit. Even heavy attacks, they do quite a bit as well, but these are sweeping broad strokes, not focused shots. The big thing here is on your ability to power this thing and do damage. That is where the Thunderhammer shines. You power it on, you charge in, you hit something in a weak spot, you do a critical weak spot hit, and you just melt something. It is worth noting too, though, that if you hold down left click, you're doing a relentless swing, a wide swing, versus tapping left click would simply do a strike down. But you can see here that this still does more damage. It's just something worth noting. So let's now take a look at how that damage actually pours itself out, because you are doing a considerable amount of stagger on all these, which is nice, but the heavy attack is where you're really going to be doing more stagger because of those wide sweeps. So taking a look at that same little pack of enemies that we started with the Crusher, I'm going to activate this bad boy and swing. You can see I just hit one. There's no cool shockwave. There's nothing crazy about it. But what I want you to take a look at is, I'm going to activate this and swing again. Look at what happens to the hammer. I'm going to just bring it off screen. I'm going to labor about for a little bit, and then I'm going to bring it back to the ready position. And in that moment, I can left click as many times as I want, and I will not be able to swing. So, charge, swing. So you see, like, I don't know if you could hear it, but I was clicking the whole time. I finally got a swipe to go through. So there's this weird moment where the game kind of lets the hammer lag back a little bit as I bring it back into the ready stance. That to me is kind of rough. When the Crusher, I can just keep spamming and hitting and spamming and hitting and spamming and hitting. I'm not sure if one is not working as intended, but that is kind of something worth noting, because it does kind of change how useful this can be in a pitch fight when you're trying to, all right, just trying to move down the line. Oh, come on, let's go. Oh, this is taking forever to turn back on. Okay, there we go. It doesn't allow you to really kind of keep a good amount of momentum going. And this then applies to swinging across. It stops dead. It doesn't pull through and allow me to hit all these guys. See, it stops on one. It doesn't allow me to hit multiple enemies, which makes the Thunderhammer to me really kind of fall short when it comes to cleaving. I can cleave normally without it activated, and that's just fine. That's how you want to cleave. You want to be doing heavy attacks with this to kind of keep yourself mobile, hitting things, and knocking them over. That's how it works. But the second I want to use the activatable to do this, I'm just not going to be able to do anything with it. But of course, the way you want to use that Thunderhammer is you see a Crusher or a Mauler. That's what you do. And to kind of recap that, I'm holding down F, pressing activatable. You can see the little red haze is still on him, so I have plenty of time to get that off. So it's 2 hits on that guy. Oh, I need to charge up my ult. But even then, without the ult, I can still do some respectable damage there, right? And you can see that it actually is a crit. I'm actually getting those crits when I hit those locations, and I'm not even using my activatable. Well, that's not a crit, that's a weak spot. That is a crit. That bright yellow gold text right there, that is a crit. 1,251 damage on that guy, which is lovely. Something I don't get. Not even the weak spot hit. Do I get that on the Crusher? I do not, right? You only get it here on that Thunder Hammer, which is going to be able to melt these large Carapace armor targets. So that's the kind of shining point of this thing. And by the way, if you're looking at that skin is from the Imperial Edition. But it just kind of bothers me that I can go like this, and I have to wait for him to recover while I recover. So the stagger I've dealt, I don't really get to take advantage of with the Thunder Hammer because I'm kind of taking this weird route to get, ooh, hello, hi, how are you? Getting the weapon back online, which kind of, to me, isn't too fun. So that is something to consider. It's something that I hope that they fix, and maybe the text is wrong on one or the other, but this should give you now a really good idea of how these two weapons kind of play hand in hand. I do have the ability to cleave things. My cleave damage is still respectable, but it's nowhere near the ability to lock things down as the Crusher. The Crusher, on the other hand, can cleave the hell out of everything, but it cannot do that burst damage that I can get with this. Being able to just kind of pop these guys is a really nice thing about using the Thunder Hammer. It's unfortunately the downside of the Crusher, but the contrary remains with the ability to crowd control. So hopefully this helps you out in determining which of these weapons really helps you in the use case you want. If you would like more of these weapon test videos, more of these kind of videos where I deep dive on which one's better, maybe the combat axe versus the tactical axe. Hint, it's the Mark V combat axe. Then let me know in the comment section below. I was going to do a tier list video today, but I just kind of needed a fun, quick video to kind of dissect two different things, and this was what I chose to go with. But by all means, guys, let me know what your findings have been with the Thunder Hammer versus the Crusher. Maybe there's a certain amount of blessings that you're using on your Thunder Hammer that turns it into a machine. The Antrax Mark V combat axe, what makes it so good is that brutal momentum blessing that pretty much gives it infinite cleave. Let me know what kind of blessings, what kind of perk setups you're using on both of these weapons to get the most mileage out of them. Remember, this is a very early portion of the game. There's so much stuff that's being added from patch to patch, things that are being changed with each edition of crafting. So all this information might be completely outdated in a month or two. So keep that all in mind. And if you like one over the other, then that's the best one. Don't think that by watching this video, I have to min-max and just use this one for this scenario. I'm using the Crusher and I'm loving it, and I'm still killing all the things that I need to kill. Just make sure you enjoy the game in the best way possible. Don't try to think that you need to use a specific weapon and that's the only weapon you'll be able to use. Unless it's a combat blade and you have a wrist of steel that can just kind of deal with all that kind of impact trauma on your index finger. But either way, if you have any other questions or you want to share your findings on these two weapons, go ahead and let it be known. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.